don't keep saying why. I feel I'm more respectful to this non-entity than the people who keep pestering. Take him seriously. If there was such a person, he doesn't owe me an explanation. That would be pathetic. That would really mean he was made in my image, full of self-pity and silly questions. If there's a scheme, then we should make ourselves sweat hard, mentally, to work out what it is. Now, your question was, your grandparents were lucky enough to survive the attempt by German imperialism in alliance with most of the Catholic right to destroy the Jewish people of Europe and to take their not inconsiderable property. Very easy prospect to understand, very easy project to get your grip on. And the result of generations of teaching by the church that the Jews were collectively responsible for the murder of Jesus. That would be my material explanation. And it doesn't leave much unanswered. We already know that man is moved to man. The Rabbi coyly doesn't say, well, the Jewish sages and authorities were asked when their people turned to them and said, our children were burned before our eyes. Where was God? They put God on trial in Auschwitz. It's a famous occasion. They had a hearing to indict him. How is this? Well, the Rabbi said it's a punishment for exile. Not all of them said it, but many very senior ones did. It's a punishment for falling away, forgetting Jerusalem, going into exile and assimilation. It's a punishment for that. So many people, like you said, your grandparents wouldn't go near a temple after their experience. So many people were like that. The Rabbi stopped saying that, stopped being a popular line, that God had burnt those Jewish children alive to punish them for not being pious. You know what?
That's, yes,
you know what I'm talking about.
Gross libel of Jewish theology.
You know very well.
I do know very well, actually. I teach it. It's a gross libel.
A lot of very important rabbis took that. I don't say they all did, but many of them did. Many of them kept quiet, which is what I would have done. Rabbi or no rabbi.
Oh.
But then, excuse me, then Israel takes the Western Wall and the West Bank in the 1967 war, and suddenly there are enormous numbers of rabbis. They are now. Sorry, we spoke too soon before. Now we see the people. It was all meant so the ingathering could take place. We could all move to Palestine and take Arab land and rebuild the temple. That hasn't worked out too brilliantly well either, has it? I would suggest that the question why, when asked of a non-entity, is going to result in a nonsensical conversation. All of these things are susceptible to materialist and natural explanations. Otherwise, secretly you will find, and you'll be told, that God has it in for you for being a Jew in the first place. And that I consider to be obscene.
If you actually are interested in the Jewish theological responses to the Holocaust, like Eliezer Berkovitz and Elie Wiesel and Arthur Cohen, most of which were written before '67, and none of which of the major theological responses to the Holocaust give the reason that Mr. Hitchens said was so widespread, I'd be more than happy to recommend books to you. And just look up Stephen Katz and his book on theological responses to the Holocaust. With all due respect to Mr. Hitchens, that was not the prevailing theological response. Or even a very widespread theological response. And the other thing that I would say is that well, you know what, I'll leave it at that, except the issue which we didn't talk about, I just alluded to it, is the question of whether this world is the only experience that human beings have. And that seems to me to be an important question, maybe a question for another debate another time. But whatever the answer to that, on a human level, you can understand why if people were persecuted for their faith, they would abandon their faith, and many Jews certainly did. But I don't consider that the logical response. I consider that a human and tragic response to what happened.
I think it's wise to act as if this is the only world we have.
Yes, I do.
I think it's prudent to behave that way, which in turn means don't be pushed around by people who say if you obey them in this life, or give up your freedom in this life, you'll get a better offer in the next. It's not, I think, a safe bet, even in Pascalian terms.
Thank you both.